just the general treatment of women and men is different.
How so?
The way that a man will talk to me versus a way a man will talk to, for example, at my job, the way I'll get talked to versus a busser who is a male will be different, and it won't be for any reason other than because it's a woman and a man.
Wouldn't you say that's because men and women are different?
No, I'm just saying.
Couldn't you say that that's evidence of, so is that sexism?
Depends on what the thought process is of the person who's saying.
Do you get paid tips?
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't it the case that women tend to make more tips than men? No.
Yeah.
No, I feel like,
No?
no, I remember I used to be a server and I looked at statistics. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
It depends on the restaurant. If it's
Yeah.
at like Hooters or something, obviously women are going to make
no.
more.
But at our
because
restaurant,
we're
like,
women.
we all
It's
get
what?
paid the same tips.
Yeah.
It's all divided equally.
Yeah.
No, some restaurants, there's pooling at some restaurants, but other places, it's going to be like whatever your tips are your tips.
Even if it is pooling, it's like who's bringing in more.
I think they generally, when
women.
it comes to tips, I think they make about the same. Because
Yeah.
I remember I was like looking at like stats on this, on how like things people can do to get higher tips, and it was showing like differences in like appearance and different demographics.
There have been pretty comprehensive studies on this. Women are tipped more than men. I just did a Google search.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, proven wrong then. I can see.
But so are you talking about the preferential sexist treatment that you receive?
I'm just talking about like
when it comes to tipping,
general treatment. Just generally the way you'd get treated, whether it's better or worse, you'll get treated differently for your gender, and that's just the facts. It could be better sometimes. If you go to a gas station, maybe the guy will give you something for free because he thinks you're hot. But either way,
So is that a privilege or?
no. I'm just saying either way, it could be better or worse. It's just different.
Okay.
And then if anything, what if the gas station worker is sexist and he hates women, so he overcharges you because he thinks you're dressed like a slut or something? Like, it just depends.
Yeah. Or what about like the whole, educational system, which is predominated by women, especially for young childhood education, and these women tend to have a bias against men, and so they tend to, when it comes to assessments for students, they will give more favorable grades to women on the pure basis of them being women.
I've never heard that in my
It's
life.
absolutely a thing.
I'm just saying I've
What-
never heard that in my 19 years of life.
Are elementary school teachers more likely to be men or women?
Women.
You don't know?
No, I mean,
I think women.
Huh?
Like my school's pretty divided.
yeah, we had like
I
half
had
and
more
half.
male teachers in my
In
lifetime.
elementary school?
Yeah.
Okay, well, perhaps yours was an outlier, but if I were to present statistics to you that showed that there were more in the kindergarten through sixth grade, there's more female teachers than male teachers,
Why does that matter?
I would agree though.
oh, it matters a lot.
But why?
Well, one, the men don't have any sort of male role models in the school environment, but then secondly, there is preferential. You're saying that in society, men will perhaps treat people differently, right? You don't think women do that? Or are women perfect angels that have no biases, don't do any sort of preferential treatment?
No, I never said that. You just said that. I never said that.
So then you would agree then, if you're saying that women do have biases, that if there was a disproportionate amount of women in elementary school education, that they would have a tendency to be biased towards the women, or excuse me, the girls.
I'm confused why you're bringing up teachers, because in the end, I don't think, are you trying to say that administrations won't hire a teacher because he's a man? Because
Probably, that's not what I'm arguing,
if
but
it's
yes,
like
there's probably a
majority
bias.
women that are studying to be a teacher, then that's just what happens. But I don't think that there's going to be a man out there who studies to be a teacher, goes through college, applies, and then they look at his credentials and they say, you've done all the same stuff as all these women that are teachers, but we're not going to hire you because you're a man.
But would you make a similar argument about hiring practices when it comes to women?
Well, for example,
I'm not really the one here who needs to make the argument, because this is a feminist position that there's discrimination when it comes to job hiring practices towards women.
yeah, but you brought up the teacher thing, so
Right.
that's what I'm talking about.
But you're saying
So
that
I'm
can't, you're
asking
saying,
for an example.
you're saying it can't possibly exist that there's any bias against men in job hiring. But you
I
wouldn't
didn't say that.
You kind of did, because you're like, well, I don't think if they went to the college and they did this, that there would exist any biases that would make it harder for them to get a job when it came to dealing with children. For example, I would argue that there's a very strong bias against male babysitters or having a male working in a child daycare. I would argue most people, there's a bias that will exist in both men and women. Would they have a preference for a female or a male to handle the child care?
They would. I agree with you. I think there is
Right.
a bias.
And so there's a similar, and so for elementary school, right, it's dealing with young children, there is an anti-male bias. I don't think it's justified, but there is an anti-male bias when it comes to elementary school teachers. And a
Okay.
lot of men who would love to be elementary school teachers have been pushed out of that career because of this bias that exists towards men when it comes to dealing with young children.
Okay, and so the reason that that bias exists is because statistically, not that we're supposed to bring this up, but statistically,
Well, I'm...
no.
Okay,
but
make your point,
I'm
but...
gonna, because you said I can't say this word, but statistically, the majority of people who are attracted to children are men. And you could look that up. It's a
Well,
majority
I'm not
men.
sure.
I disagree with that.
Because, well, there's a couple things here. So first off, you hear week after week, day after day stories of female teachers graping their students.
But
All
I
the
don't
time.
hear that often, honestly. To be honest, me
It's
personally, I don't
it's
hear
actually
that
more
often.
common. It's more common than the male professor, or not the male teacher, than with female student.
Could you
It's-
look this up?
Yes,
It's
I've
far
seen
more
multiple
common.
stories recently. In my specific area in Massachusetts, there was a female teacher recently that actually SA'd a male student in middle school, had his baby, lied to his parents about it, and then he found out years later when she was in jail that it was his biological son.
And to that, I would say, sad story, obviously terrible, but I said statistically majority men.
Can
I'm
I-
not
can I
saying
throw her a
women-
bone, too? Like-
Women don't sexually
But statistically,
assault.
especially in recent years, there's been, I could look it up if I had my phone, but there has been statistically many more female teachers that have essayed male students.
think
There's
more
even been
women?
stories, yes.
If I could interject, and I don't know who's correct here, like, but it could be, it just like that. I mean, you very well could be right. That would be like surprising to me, but I'm thinking maybe it could be like in the news more often, those situations, because it's so like crazy to think of, like, because it like throws off our expectations to think that like a woman would do that. So maybe that's why it's in the news, because it's just the most like outlandish, not outlandish, but like extreme headline. But like
I can give you a
surprising,
little bit of
shocking,
credit.
shocking.
It would be more newsworthy for them to send that message. But I think any teacher that essays a student is going to be on the news.
I mean, possibly, but I do think that like.
But if anything, you
woman
could just
that
look
would
up
be so far
this
from-
statistic so we know for sure.
Yeah, we could.
Brian, would you
Because
be able to do
I
that?
don't know.
Because I don't know any exact numbers, but from life that
Just
I've
so we can settle our
experienced,
argument?
it's been majority men that I've seen, and that's why that bias exists, which I'm not saying that's right, because there's great teachers that are male that want to be teachers, and I don't think it's fair for them to be rejected from teaching if that's their passion. But I'm saying that there is a bias and there's a reason for that
Can I ask you a
bias.
question? Would you be more likely to leave do you want kids one day?
I'm not sure.
Let's say you did have kids.
Okay.
You more likely to leave them with a female babysitter or male babysitter? What would be your preference?
I think I would meet them because if it's a female and she seems like a freak, then I'm not going to leave my kids with her. So depending on
They're equally qualified.
they're equally
and they-
qualified.
Neither of them, they're equally qualified. They're both seem like good people. You don't have a leaning towards.
I would
One?
lean towards the same gender of whatever gender my kid is. So if I have a male kid, then I would probably lean towards having a male babysitter. And then if I have a female kid, I'd lean towards a female babysitter. Same gender, same role model. They understand each other. They could teach each other things.
It's like a 2-year-old.
Okay, well, the older woman can teach the young girl stuff, and then if I have a boy, then there's an older role model for him.
Okay, all right.
I actually
If
do
that's-
think that's a pretty fair argument.
Yeah.